Most creators have a ceiling, a limit to how far they can actually go. Millions of subscribers, sold-out shows, viral moments, and then eventually it plateaus. The algorithm decides you've reached your audience, and that's it. And then there is IShowSpeed. Because what happened to him is not influencer fame. It is not even YouTube fame. It is something closer to what happened to Michael Jackson in the 1980s. Cities shutting down, police blocking traffic, tens of thousands of people swarming streets just to catch a glimpse of a 20-year-old from Ohio. And all of it, every single bit of it traces back to one moment. One donation, $1.79, and a random kid named Bradley. Before the crowds and the world tours and the records, there was just Darren Watkins, better known online as IShowSpeed. On March 26, 2022, he was a 17-year-old kid from Ohio with 6 million subscribers, a loyal fan base, and a reputation for being loud, completely unpredictable, and totally unfiltered. By the standards of YouTube and streaming, he was doing well. He had momentum. He had an audience that loved his energy. But he existed within a defined space, a ceiling that most creators hit and never break through. And he had no idea that in the next 10 seconds, that ceiling was about to disappear entirely. Bradley donated £1.79 through Super Chat, and Speed read it out loud and answered the question Bradley had asked about which soccer team he supported. 3 words. Cristiano Ronaldo. Sway. That was it. A throwaway answer. A moment that lasted maybe 5 seconds and meant nothing to anyone in that room. Except it did not stay in that room. That clip escaped. It hit football communities across the world and not American football. The kind of football where the World Cup final draws 1.5 billion viewers. Where the sport is not just entertainment, but religion. Where kids in Brazil dribble barefoot on concrete dreaming of being the next great name. Where the entire fabric of daily life in dozens of countries is woven around 90 minutes twice a week. Speed had stumbled into an audience he never knew existed. Speed picked up a soccer ball. He booted up FIFA. And something clicked immediately. He butchered player names. He lost his mind over pack openings. He celebrated every single goal like it was the Champions League final. And the football world did not just watch. They embraced it completely. Fans poured in from every corner of the planet. Not just for the gameplay, but for the spectacle. And at the center of all of it sat one obsession. Cristiano Ronaldo. The biggest name on the biggest stage in the world. Over 1 billion followers across social media platforms. More than any musician, any actor, any other athlete or influencer on earth. To hundreds of millions of people, he is not just a player. He is a symbol. And Speed built his entire new identity around him. Songs. Music videos. CR7 tattoos. Every stream. Every viral moment. Every sway. All of it was leading somewhere. Speed made a declaration on stream. He was going to meet Ronaldo. No matter what. And what followed was one of the most documented and publicly watched parasocial missions in the history of the internet. He flew across continents. He screamed from stands at the FA Cup in London. He showed up at the World Cup in Qatar. Every failed attempt was like jet fuel. The fire did not just grow. It erupted. The online fan base was not just watching anymore. They were invested. They needed it to happen. The hype reached a level where even Ronaldo's own teammates started acknowledging Speed's existence on camera. And then after months of chasing, following a Portugal victory, deep in a parking garage in Qatar, the dream finally happened. Meeting Ronaldo changed something. Speed had already noticed that outside the United States, the energy around him was completely different. Back home he had fans. But in the rest of the world, it was something else entirely. So he started going to find it. Japan, the UK, India, Brazil. Each destination was different, but the effect was the same. He was not just passing through countries. He was playing cricket in India and screaming sway at the Ballon d'Or. He was embracing local culture, standing face to face with audiences country by country, city by city. And everywhere he went, he left behind entire waves of dedicated fans who had never had this kind of access to someone at his level before. In the summer of 2024, Speed set his sights on something that no streamer had ever attempted at that scale. A full European tour spanning 18 countries in 30 days. Germany, Albania, Poland, Switzerland, Belgium, the Netherlands. Every stop became a landmark moment. Fans sprinted through miles of traffic, trying to be part of what was happening. The subscriber count was exploding 25 million, 26 million, 27 million milestones that take most YouTubers a lifetime to reach, hitting like clockwork, with over 2 million new subscribers arriving in a single month. But as the crowds grew bigger, so did the danger. And in Norway, Speed was forced to learn exactly what happens when fandom tips into frenzy. In Norway, a crowd materialized around Speed so fast that it took just 9 minutes and 6 seconds to completely surround and trap him and his entire team inside a souvenir shop. Security could not hold the swarm. There was nowhere to go. The only option was to force through it. And Norway was not an anomaly. It was just the most extreme version of something happening at every single stop. Fans were not content to see him from a distance. They lunged. They grabbed. They clawed for anything they could take with them: his hat, his shoes, even his hair. Cities were not prepared. Security setups were not enough. And Speed himself was in the middle of it, a teenager trying to navigate a level of chaos that no blueprint existed to handle. After Norway, something had to change. Because walking into these situations unprepared was no longer just uncomfortable. It was genuinely dangerous for him and for the people showing up to see him. Speed had to evolve from a creator who just showed up somewhere and started streaming into something closer to a traveling production. Security details, advanced teams scoping exits and entry points, decoy vehicles, team members dressed to look like him to create diversions, multiple car switches after streams to shake the crowds following them. He talked about it openly, describing how much preparation goes into every international stop that the audience never sees, because all they ever get is the 15-second clip of the chaos. The infrastructure was not glamorous, but it was what made the rest of this possible. The next calculated move was Southeast Asia, and it was smart for a very specific reason. Most American creators on international tours follow the same predictable circuit: London, Paris, Tokyo, maybe Sydney. They stay in the bubble. But Southeast Asia is a region where that kind of direct access to someone at Speed's level essentially does not exist. The anticipation was at an all-time high before he even landed. From getting mobbed in the Philippines to getting scammed in Vietnam to crashing a tuk-tuk in Thailand, every stop was a mixture of fan chaos, cultural immersion, and Speed being Speed. And then in Jakarta, Indonesia, during a live stream, something happened that had never happened before in the history of English-language streaming. 1 million concurrent viewers, all watching live, at the same time. By the end of 2024, Speed had done what almost nobody in the history of online content had managed to do. He crossed 33 million subscribers. He won Streamer of the Year. He had circled the globe multiple times, leaving behind hundreds of thousands of people in country after country who would describe seeing him as one of the most memorable moments of their lives. And somewhere along the way, he finally met Bradley, the kid whose £1.79 donation had set all of this in motion. And when they were finally in the same room, Speed said something simple and completely genuine. "You are the reason I am sitting in this chair right now." Here is what the IShowSpeed's story actually is when you strip away all the noise. It is the story of a chaotic kid from Ohio who stumbled into the biggest audience in the world through a $1.79 donation and then had the instinct and the relentless energy to turn that accidental moment into something nobody had ever seen before. He did not follow the playbook because there was no playbook. Nobody had done this. Nobody had built a streaming career that genuinely transcended national borders, crossed languages, and created the kind of hysteria that historically only belonged to the biggest music acts in the world. He learned everything in public, made every mistake in front of millions, and got bigger every single time. When asked what he wants to be remembered as, his answer was immediate: the greatest streamer to ever live. The greatest content creator to ever live. And right now, it is genuinely hard to argue with that.